The first step towards solving a crisis is being willing to describe it accurately, no matter how uncomfortable that description makes us. This presentation presents a statistical hypothesis and an urgent call for research. It does not assert causation. All claims should be subjected to rigorous, peer-reviewed scientific investigation. A striking statistical anomaly has gone largely unexamined for decades. Countries with the highest concentrations of non-brown-eyed populations, particularly blue-eyed people, also record the world's most severe drug overdose mortality rates. This presentation examines the numbers, explores why this pattern went unnoticed, and asks what we should do next. Brown eyes are by far the dominant eye color on Earth, estimated to appear in 55 to 79% of the global population. When you factor in hazel and amber, non-brown eyes represent a remarkably small slice of humanity. Blue eyes are the rarest of the major categories, appearing in only an estimated 8 to 10% of the world's population. Green eyes are rarer still, at roughly 2%. This geographic and genetic concentration means that blue-eyed populations are essentially clustered in a handful of nations, predominantly in Northern and Eastern Europe and their diaspora countries. Blue eyes are predominantly found in Northern Europe and countries influenced by Northern European immigration. The United States, while not having the highest percentage, hosts a significant number of blue-eyed individuals, making it crucial for population-level health studies. The United States leads the world in drug overdose mortality by a significant margin. According to CDC data, over 107,000 Americans died from drug overdoses in a single recent year. Canada, the United Kingdom, Scotland in particular, and several Scandinavian countries follow with disproportionately high rates relative to their population size. These are not random nations. They share one statistical trait: a dramatically higher than average proportion of non-brown and specifically blue-eyed citizens. The geographic overlap is too consistent to be dismissed without examination. Countries with predominantly brown-eyed populations like Japan, Brazil, and much of Africa and Asia have overdose mortality rates 10 to 80 times lower than the United States. These disparities remain significant even when accounting for gross domestic product and healthcare access, highlighting the need for further investigation. Of all non-brown eye colors, blue-eyed populations appear most concentrated in the epicenters of the overdose epidemic. The United States, a nation where an estimated 27 to 35% of the population carries blue eyes, has been the global ground zero for opioid and synthetic drug death for over 2 decades. The crisis did not emerge evenly across America either. It burned hottest in Appalachia, rural New England, and the Midwest, regions with historically higher proportions of Northern European-descended blue-eyed residents. This is not coincidence. It is a pattern demanding scientific attention. Blue-eyed individuals make up 8 to 10% of the global population, yet the United States accounts for about 35% of global overdose deaths, with over 107,000 deaths annually at the crisis peak. This eye color correlation has remained largely unexamined for over 20 years, highlighting a critical gap in population-level studies. The opioid crisis was strategically influenced by pharmaceutical companies, like focusing on regions with higher non-brown-eyed populations, such as Appalachia and rural Ohio. Critics highlight the targeting of economically disadvantaged white communities, raising questions about whether phenotypic markers like eye color correlate with neurobiological vulnerability to opioid dependency. The modern opioid crisis was not random. Pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma deliberately targeted specific regions with aggressive marketing campaigns, regions that happen to correlate tightly with higher concentrations of non-brown-eyed Americans. Appalachia, rural Ohio, West Virginia, and Maine were ground zero. critics of the pharmaceutical industry have long noted the targeting of economically disadvantaged white communities. What has not been examined is whether phenotypic markers, including eye color, correlate with neurobiological vulnerability to opioid dependency, or whether these communities were targeted in ways that exploited that vulnerability. Research indicates individuals with lighter eye colors, especially blue, report higher pain sensitivity and different analgesic responses. A 2014 study noted blue-eyed women had lower cold pain tolerance. Melanin, affecting eye color and neurological pathways, may influence addiction vulnerability, suggesting a potential biological link that warrants further investigation. Public health research overwhelmingly frames health disparities through the lens of race, a socially constructed category. Eye color, a purely biological trait, is not a standard variable collected in most health datasets, making it invisible to researchers by design. Since blue eyes and white European ancestry often co-occur, any observed pattern is quickly attributed to socioeconomic or racial factors, with eye color dismissed as a confounding variable rather than examined as a potentially independent one. Research funding follows established paradigms. Without a recognized framework linking eye color phenotype to health outcomes, grant proposals exploring this connection would struggle for institutional support or peer credibility. Discussing a crisis concentrated in white, blue-eyed communities carries political risk in both directions. Some fear it minimizes historical racism. Others fear it implies racial victimhood. The result is silence, and the pattern goes unstudied. Eye color discrimination is subtle and often subconscious, lacking legal recognition. Unlike racism, it leaves no paper trail. Pharmaceutical companies could possibly target demographics correlating with blue-eyed communities without explicitly mentioning eye color. This makes detection and prosecution nearly impossible, as there is no legal framework or cultural vocabulary for addressing eye color bias in public health. Racism is visible. It operates through skin color, something immediately apparent, historically codified, and legally recognized as a protected characteristic. Eye color discrimination is fundamentally different. It is subtle, often subconscious, and leaves no paper trail. A pharmaceutical company does not need to state it is targeting blue-eyed communities. It targets zip codes, socioeconomic profiles, and pain clinic patterns that correlate with those communities without ever mentioning eye color. This makes it nearly impossible to detect, prosecute, or even name. There is no legal framework, no anti-discrimination statute, and no cultural vocabulary for eye color bias in public health. Race is a legally protected class in most nations. Eye color is not. There is no mechanism to file a complaint, conduct an audit, or require disclosure of eye color demographic data. If a biological vulnerability exists, it can be exploited commercially without any discriminatory intent being provable, or even required. The harm occurs regardless of intent. Eye color is not recorded in medical records, census data, or public health surveillance systems, making statistical analysis of any health disparity by eye color almost impossible without bespoke research. International health bodies, like the WHO, do not track eye color demographics. Global comparisons that might reveal the pattern are simply never made with this lens. The geographic concentration of overdose deaths in the United States reveals patterns linked to specific ancestral and phenotypic profiles. Analyzing these patterns through an eye color demographic lens provides a new hypothesis, suggesting that conventional racial analysis may not fully explain the crisis. This analysis emphasizes vulnerability, not hierarchy. A specific population may have a biological vulnerability linked to ocular melanin levels, similar to how sickle cell anemia affects those of West African descent. Addressing this is a matter of health equity, requiring rigorous scientific attention. Ignoring it equates to negligence, not neutrality. It is critical to state clearly, this analysis does not suggest that any eye color is superior or inferior. It suggests the opposite, that a specific population may carry a biological vulnerability that has been exploited, ignored, and left unaddressed. Understanding this vulnerability is an act of protection, not prejudice. Just as sickle cell anemia disproportionately affects people of West African descent, and medicine rightly treats that as a health equity issue, potential neurobiological differences linked to ocular melanin levels deserve the same rigorous, compassionate scientific attention. Ignoring it is not neutrality, it is negligence. Throughout the opioid crisis, dominant frameworks like race and geography overshadowed potential phenotypic factors such as eye color. From the 1990s to the 2020s, this oversight contributed to preventable deaths, as eye color was never seriously considered or studied. This represents a significant gap in understanding the crisis's full scope. Advocate for eye color to be included as a voluntary variable in national health surveys, overdose reporting systems, and pharmaceutical trial demographics. You cannot study what you do not measure. Commission NIH and international equivalents to study the relationship between ocular melanin, dopaminergic pathways, pain sensitivity, and opioid dependency risk. Biological plausibility already exists. It needs rigorous testing. Consider whether phenotypic characteristics beyond race, including eye color, should be included in health equity legislation and pharmaceutical marketing accountability standards. Bring this hypothesis into public, academic, and policy discourse without fear. Scientific questions should not be silenced by political discomfort. The cost of silence is measured in lives. Roughly 8 to 10% of humanity has blue eyes. Those people are concentrated in a handful of countries. Those countries lead the world in drug overdose deaths by an enormous margin. The country with the single largest absolute population of blue-eyed people has spent 20 years as the global epicenter of a drug mortality catastrophe. The pattern is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the courage to look directly at it.